Ladies and gentlemen, we are less than a day away, because I'm notoriously late at filming things, from the NHL expansion draft, where everyone who is not the Vegas Golden Knights has put out a list of players that they are to protect and that they are going to make available to be drafted by the future NHL team known as the Seattle Kraken. That happens tomorrow. Wednesday, July 21st. So, let's talk about the players that the Boston Bruins have protected. And outside of maybe one or two names, none of these players should be surprises. So let's get the easy ones out of the way, and arguably also the easy reasons why out of the way at the same time. Patrice Bergeron. Easy peasy. He's your captain. He's got a no trade and a no movement clause. He's protected. Charlie Coyle. No trade, no movement clause. Third line center, possibly second line center next year. Protected. Trent Frederic. You just signed him at 2 years, $2.1 million contract. He's protected. Brad Marchand. He's your alternate captain. He is the best offensive player on the team. He has a no movement clause. Protected. David Pastrnak, the best forward on the team, the best goal scorer on the team. No trade and a no movement clause. He is protected. Craig Smith, last season, 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points with the Boston Bruins on the second line, playing with, hopefully, again, Taylor Hall and David Krejci. We'll find out what happens in a couple of weeks, or in a week. But he is protected as well. Brandon Carlo, you just signed him not too long ago, maybe I believe a handful of days ago, to a 6-year, $24.6 million deal. He is protected as well. Matt Grzelcyk, your number one left shot defenseman, you signed him last year to a contract. He is protected. Charlie McAvoy, your future captain of the Boston Bruins, he is protected as well. And of course, Dan Vladar, the only goalie who is able to be put under protection. Why? Because players who have yet to accrue 2 or fewer seasons in the NHL as professional athletes are exempt from being selected. That includes Jack Studnicka, Urho Vakanainen, and Jeremy Swayman. Now let's go over, probably for some of you, the decision person protected that makes arguably the least amount of sense for the Boston Bruins, and that is the man who last season scored 5 goals, 9 assists for a very disappointing 14 points. We're talking about everybody's favorite punching bag on the left wing, Jake DeBrusk. Now, I have given out about Jake DeBrusk most of last season and most of the playoffs for his lack of production throughout the entirety of the 2021 season. However, if you look at the players who are available and aren't free agents of any kind, oh boy, you realize real quick that Jake DeBrusk was literally the only forward left for Boston to have as a protected player. Oh boy. And that's how bad Boston's depth scoring was. Oh boy, we always have to mention depth scoring when we're talking about the Boston Bruins, don't we? It never goes away. So, Boston went with the 7 forward, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie motto, mainly, again, because they had to, as a gigantic chunk of their roster was some sort of free agent, whether it be restricted or unrestricted. So, let us quickly divulge the names of the players who were unprotected that are also free agents. But before we do, let us quickly understand why this is of importance. If you are a free agent in the NHL, it makes very, very little sense for a new expansion team to pick you knowing full well that you're just going to test the market and be signed by another team in the offseason. So sign a player and he's gone in less than a week. Doesn't sound like a smart idea. Restricted free agent, you have a little bit more wiggle room, but there's a potential that they could be offer sheeted. So, here are the list of Boston Bruins unprotected / available players that are free agents of some sort in alphabetical order because it's easier and that's the way the list was made for me. Taylor Hall, he's an unrestricted free agent. Ondrej Kase, he is a restricted free agent with all of the injury issues in the world. David Krejci, as alternate captain, he's an unrestricted free agent. As is Sean Kuraly, Greg McKegg. Nick Ritchie is restricted, as is Zach Senyshyn. Mike Sarge Riley of 98.5 The Sports Hub, just kidding. He is an unrestricted free agent, as is Big Jared Tenorti. Following that up with the two biggest goaltenders for Boston, Jaro Halak, and 2 U's, 2 K's, Tuukka Rask. All of those players unrestricted free agents or restricted free agents. Most likely that with a handful of exceptions, which I will get to a little bit later, none of these players will be selected by the Seattle Kraken. Also, side note on the unprotected list is Kevin Miller. Will not be selected on the basis that he retired. Well wishes to you. Congratulations on your retirement, and I wish you well going forward. Let's take a quick look at some of the rest of the available players for the Seattle Kraken. There are a few names that I didn't put on this list just because they're a non-factor. A lot of these players are non-factors, but there's some that are more non-factors than others. So, Providence players and some Europe players. There are a couple of people that are more likely to be selected by the Seattle Kraken. We'll get to those as well as we go down the list real quick. So you got Anton Bleed playing mostly in Providence, as is Paul Carey. Peter Solaric has played in Providence and in Europe for the last year. Jakob Forsbacka Karlsson, he's been in the SHL for the last 2 years. Cameron Hughes, he's been in Providence. Joona Koppanen, he's been in Providence as well. So, first person who has NHL experience for at least more than just like a game here or there is Carson Kuhlman, the coolest man on ice. 56 games played, 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points in his career. At the age of 25, he already has 16 playoff games to his name. Also on the NHL list is the acquired from Buffalo as well, 26-year-old fourth-line centerman Curtis Lazar. I mean, we've talked about Nick Ritchie a little bit. Restricted free agent, I still think he's on the table. But more importantly, now we get to the 2 young defensemen for Boston that are available in Connor Clifton, Cliffy Hockey, 26 years old on the right-hand side, slightly under 100 games played on the season or in his career. Following that up is Jeremy Lauzon, 24 years of age on the left-hand side, 76 games played in his career up to this point. Also on the list is Johnny Moore, who's spent most of the year and is still, to my knowledge, according to CapFriendly.com, he is on injured reserve. Follow that up, Jakub Zaboral. He is 24 years of age, former first-round draft pick of the Boston Bruins, 44 games played for Zaboral. Following that up, the final choice, 30-year-old fourth-line depth forward Chris Wagner, the mayor of Walpole. So, who will Seattle take from your Boston Bruins? It's a pretty easy pick in my estimation. It's Connor Clifton or Jeremy Lauzon. Let's not kid ourselves here. It's a young defenseman that is going to Seattle. Now, you could argue that there is a dark horse selection for Nick Ritchie. As an RFA, they would be able to have more leverage in re-signing Ritchie to a contract, and he brings size and physicality to the Seattle Kraken. Good third-line guy, power play opportunity if you want to put him there in the same kind of capacity that Boston did, which is get your big ass in front of the net. It's a possibility that that is a way that Seattle looks at it as well, and they could also take a flyer pick on Ondrej Kase, but He's played 9 games for the Boston Bruins in the last 2 seasons. He did play a fair amount for Anaheim before coming to Boston, but he's had consistent injury issues since being traded to the Boston Bruins. So, again, Connor Clifton or Jeremy Lauzon. Slight chance that it's Nick Ritchie, but a young defenseman has a better trade value to pick up other assets. And for the Seattle Kraken, that's the goal of this draft. We saw it with Vegas when they did their expansion draft. The goal is to acquire pieces, not necessarily build a roster from the draft. You're acquiring pieces, and then you're going to use those pieces to get other talent. That's essentially how Vegas became Vegas. They acquired assets. They used those assets. A lot of the players that they traded in their expansion draft never saw a game for Vegas at all. And I would say that you should look at that blueprint to figure out what Seattle is going to do. But I could be wrong. Seattle could very well do their own thing. Anything is possible. So, if you are asking me, I say that Seattle is going to select, and it's not just my pick, a lot of people have also been saying this as well. Seattle is going to pick right defenseman, 26-year-old Connor Clifton. That is their selection from the Boston Bruins. That again is tomorrow, the 21st of July. It'll be interesting to see how exactly the Seattle Kraken turn out. We will also be talking in a couple of days, I think. I'll try to get it out before July 28th, when it is officially the beginning of NHL free agency. One of Boston's RFAs have already been signed, that being Brendan Carlo. So, with that being said, we will try to kind of look at what the team might want to pick up in free agency, as well as go over their extensive list of unrestricted free agents, maybe do a who stays, who goes. There's a fair amount of players that I say are gonna go. Sorry, goodbye. And there might be some shockers of people who I say are gonna stay with this team. Anything is possible. So, with that being said, we will see you in a couple of days, and we'll even talk a little bit before the video begins on the free agency regarding the player that Seattle has taken. We'll go from there. So we'll see you in a couple of days on the next Bruins Recap Show.